I know I'm late, so please forgive me, but here we are. Right, here's a quick thought experiment for you. You're a filmmaker, and somebody walks in to hand you the kind of premise nobody's been handed for about 15 years. A man saves a city with no idea he exists. Not a secret identity, not the mask, not the usual nonsense about trying to balance your love life with your patrol schedule. Nobody remembers him. His best friend doesn't remember him, the woman he loves doesn't remember him, and he gave all of this up on purpose, so now he just gets to live in the wreckage of it on his own, in a city of 8 million people who walk straight past him. That's it. That's the movie. You could shoot that on a phone and it would work. So what do you do with a premise like that? Well, obviously you spend most of the runtime trying to introduce a ninja death cult.
Oh, God! Oh, God!
Spider-Man Brand New Day turned out to be one of the biggest openings in the history of the medium. It's sitting at 90% with critics and 98% with audiences. And I want to be clear before I start that I do kind of understand why. There's a lot of it in here that works. There are moments, and I mean real moments, where it slows down to remember what it was supposed to be about in the first place. But I can't shake the feeling that I've just sat through a good movie trapped inside a very expensive one. Because somewhere in all of this you can see a story about a lonely man reaching out to anybody at all. And every time it starts to tell you that story, somebody turns up who needs setting up for later. So here's where we are. It's 4 years on from the bit where Doctor Strange rewrote the memory of every living person on the planet, which, when you get right down to it, is one of the most insane things a movie's ever done and then just wandered away from. Peter swings around New York in total anonymity. He's got organic webbing now, a bit of a nod back to the Raimi pictures that nobody on screen seems to find even slightly interesting. And he starts dealing with a bunch of attacks on the Department of Damage Control. Damage Control, for anybody sensible enough not to have committed the org chart of a fictional government to memory, exists to clean the rubble away after the superheroes finish wrecking the place. It worked as a joke about 8 years ago. It's been load-bearing for 4 movies since. And this turns out to be the work of, and I want you to stay with me here, a ninja death cult working for a middle manager at a government bureau. At no point does anybody in that building put their hand up in a meeting to ask why the department employs 11 guys in red pajamas. Not once. Meanwhile, Frank Castle wanders in and out of the plot shooting people, Matt Gargan runs about in a scorpion suit for reasons nobody gets round to explaining, and a young telepath with a tragic backstory turns up to fight Peter for a while and then doesn't. There's a Hulk in it too, for about 90 seconds, because at the end of the day, somebody's gotta be fucking contractually present. Now, on the other hand, and there's a fair bit to hand out here, this looks better than any Spider-Man picture of the modern run. The 3 John Watts ones were flat, everything lit like a conference room, everything the same dull, grayish nothing, and after a while, it all just blurs into one long afternoon. Destin Daniel Cretton understands what a shadow does, and the difference hits you immediately. And for the first time in about a decade, somebody's let Spider-Man swing through New York. Actual Manhattan, actual glass canyons, an actual sense of a man moving through a city instead of a man standing in front of a picture of one. The web physics get properly inventive as well, and you can see a lot of real thought gone into how the stuff behaves once it leaves his wrists. It's the most fun this character's been to watch since Raimi had hold of him, and I want that on the record before I start. But at the end of the day, the whole thing around all of that just tends to fall apart. Here's a test you can run on more or less any modern blockbuster. Go down the cast list and ask which of these people you could delete without changing the ending. And in Brand New Day, as it turns out, the answer is most of them. Yelena turns up. Take her out, nothing changes. The Hulk turns up. Take him out, nothing changes. The Hand fill in as anonymous goons because a decent chunk of the audience will recognize the name. And if you swapped all 11 of them for one guy with a crowbar, the plot would proceed exactly as written. And Michael Mando's stuck in the middle of it. The man gave one of the most quietly devastating performances on television in Better Call Saul. A sad, coiled up, brilliant bit of work, and here he just ends up as muscle in a suit. And when it comes to fixing any of this, none of it's complicated, because most of the time, these are the basics. What does Matt Gargan want? Not what does he do, what does he want? And why does he reckon a scorpion outfit's the way to get hold of it? How does Peter Parker, a kid whose entire personality got built out of one enormous loss, feel about standing next to a man who took the same kind of loss and turned it into a body count? That's a real conversation between two characters who both have to share a movie, and it never happens. How does he pay for that loft while we're here? Forget the equipment in it, how does he pay for the loft? By the end of this thing, you'll know for a fact that the villain can only jump about 30 feet at a time because it gets established twice. You won't know what a single one of these people wants. The cast, to be fair to them, mostly do what they can with what they've got. John Bernthal seems to be having a tremendous amount of fun, and he and Holland have an easy thing going that comes from having worked together before. Marvel still doesn't know what to do with the Punisher, so he turns up like a lovable rogue with a skull on his gear, some kind of gruff uncle who happens to commit war crimes, but Bernthal himself is just a pleasure to watch. And you know what? It's nice to see Tom Holland acting opposite Zendaya and Jacob Batalon again. After the last one, where he spent most of the movie sharing scenes with people he'd never met, there's a warmth between these three you can't manufacture. Holland is very good in this. He's been very good in all of them. He's had to carry this whole franchise on his back since he was 19, and I don't know that anybody's really noticed. But here's the bit that annoyed me, and it's why I'm not just going to shrug and call this one fine. There's a real movie in here. A man who gave up being known so everybody he loves would be safe, living alone in the middle of a crowd. A kid on the other side of it who's just as alone and hasn't got anybody to reach for, and who turns into something monstrous because of it. Two kinds of loneliness looking straight at each other. And that's not subtext I've gone and invented, it's right there on screen, in some of the scenes where the thing stops moving and just lets it happen. In those scenes, it's very, very good. And then a door opens, somebody walks in to set up a movie that lands in 14 months, and the whole fucking thing evaporates. And once you notice what this movie keeps reaching for, the rest of the movie falls into place, because it isn't reaching for Marvel. Have a look at what's in there. The Punisher came out of a Netflix show. The Hand came out of a Netflix show. The rights to a solo Hulk picture have sat at Universal for 20 years. Damage Control was a sitcom that never got made at ABC.
I see this as an absolute win.
And there's a character in the back half that Fox owned for 2 decades. I'm not going to spoil which one, but you're probably going to know it when it lands, and it's the loudest moment in the whole thing. So almost none of the toys in this crossover-saturated crossover movie belong to the people who supposedly own the shared universe. Since Endgame, the 2 biggest pictures to carry that logo both got built out of intellectual property Disney had to go and ask somebody else for. Sony have worked out that they're the ones holding the good one, and it shows. So is it worth your money? Well, let's be honest here. Probably, and it's going to get it either way because it's already gone past $1.1 billion at the box office, and it'll pass 2 before it's done. But this is a tasting menu and not a meal. A well-shot, well-performed, monstrously expensive bunch of things happening in the general vicinity of each other, put together by people who plainly know how to make a movie and got asked to assemble an inventory instead. And what can I say? The maddening bit is that the good version was right there in front of them. They shot pieces of it. You can see it through the gaps.